transparent, see-through, honesty, and openness. Essential conditions for a free and open exchange. Whitney Page.
Hi.
Welcome to the show, Whitney. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm very excited that you came. What made you start to realize that you had an issue with codependency?
I realized I had an issue with codependency when I was in a particular relationship that wasn't necessarily abusive, but there was a lot of emotional strain, and I couldn't pull myself from the person. And it wasn't because I was addicted to them. It was because I just felt so bad, and I felt like I had a responsibility to be there for that person, regardless of what my limit was emotionally.
How would you describe maybe what codependency feels like?
It ranges. For some people, I mean, even if you're a child living in a home with maybe an alcoholic parent, and you constantly feel like you have to nurture, you have to nurse, you have to take care of this person, you have to be careful what you say because you're constantly catering to their emotions, and you never know when it's going to erupt, and you feel like you're the cause of all the emotions. And then how that plays out in adulthood is when you're looking for love and you're looking for appreciation, you're always looking for these emotional triggers from people to tell you how I feel. So if I make my mother feel good, then good, I'm good. And then if she's angry, wait, no, I'm not good, this is not good. Or the partner, if I make my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my husband, and wife feel good, then I'm good. And it turns into an emotional puppetry. So you lose control of your life, letting your emotions constantly guide every day. Your emotions are guided by other people's actions. Instead of just walking in your autonomy. Still being sensitive to people, but still having a sense of autonomy.
I can say for me, I first realized I had an issue with codependency when a lady just handed me a book that said, Codependent No More. And I was like, oh, okay. We had a good relationship. She gave me a group of books that she said was very helpful to her. And Codependent No More was one of the books. And I started reading it. And it was just talking about how people who were codependent, you know, they usually were codependent to somebody that also had an addiction or dysfunction. People who are codependent also often have, you know, addictions, or that they grew up in a household where there may have been abandonment or neglect or, like you said, addiction. And it's just that it's almost like you said, like you get your sense of validation based on the other person, you know, based on what they're feeding you, what they're not feeding you. If they're happy, like you said, everything you just said. I think the interesting thing about something like codependency and a lot of these other issues is that there's so many other things that are combined with them. So if you take codependency on its own, that's one thing. But then now when you add anxiety, addiction, fear, depression, low self-worth, you know, it just all gets mumbled together. So sometimes it's really hard to make sense out of everything that's going on.
Right. And some of the extremes are when you're in certain relationships and now you're being physically abused, you're getting beat on, and you stay. And you don't stay, you're not dumb. You know, people always say, oh, she's so stupid. She's not stupid. She's there because even though he beats on her, he still comes home every night. So it's you wake up another day like, I won. He's still here. He still needs me. And I realized, when I realized I was codependent, and then you have to think, well, where did this come from? And I realized for me that it started in my childhood with my father, who he had a drug problem. And I can vividly remember times when I would call my stepmother to see if my father was home. Mm-hmm. And I knew if she said he wasn't home and she hadn't seen him in a while, then that meant that he went off to get high somewhere. So I would continue to call her in expectancy of, when is he back? Is he back? Or I would get the call from her saying, your father's back home. And as soon as she would confirm that he was home, I would run to Queens. I lived in Brooklyn. I would run to Queens. And, you're coming off your highs, so you're really just sleeping for the day. You're knocked out. And I would just lay at his feet, just waiting, if he needed a tissue or anything like that. Whatever was needed, I had to be there. And because as a child, you're trying to figure it out, well, as a child, because it's a parent, you're trying to figure out, well, do they love me? Because if they love me, they wouldn't do this. But because you're there, and then they get it back together, and everything's fine, this continues, and it goes into you.
Thank you. Whitney, don't make me laugh. You're going to say 2 minutes to the camera, though. I can't.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, no, it continues into your adulthood. And that's where the search for validation. So you usually wind up with men, or it can be guys too. A guy will wind up with a woman that still feeds that constant cycle of, you have to be there for the person. You have to feel needed. You have to feel, and the validation comes from, this person needs me. He's high, he needs me. He's lost, he needs me. He's broke, he needs me, And where I am today, even in a current relationship now, or going forward, I'm learning to love myself, which is the point, but also you can be there for a person and not live their life. It is possible to emotionally walk with someone and still let them live their journey. And not be sucked in. That's where you become the friend, you have the empathy, but you are still grounded as a person and you care about how you feel. Right.
And like you said, it's about not giving so much to the other person that you have actually even allowed yourself to be leached off of. Right. Even though, like you said, it may not be intentional. It's not intentional because, they're going through their own struggle that they're fighting, that they barely know how to fight. So, it's not their fault, but we do have to take responsibility for our own health. And I often think of, putting the oxygen mask on myself first, like they say in an airplane. Yes. Because if I don't have, the oxygen I need, I don't physically have to give it to somebody else. And then, to think that we're all created for a purpose and that we all have something unique inside of us that needs to be birthed. So if I'm giving everything I have to someone else, then I don't have for myself.
Codependency, even though it starts in childhood, once you become an adult, you have a responsibility to get your health in order. You have a responsibility to seek counseling because there comes a certain point where it's your fault. You're allowing it. Yes, it's your decision. Right. So I can still be in relationship and whatever that person does, unless I'm a slave, we teach people how to treat us.
Do you think forgiveness is an important part of your healing process for this?
Definitely. You have to go. When you enter a relationship with an abusive person, it could be physical abuse, it could be emotional abuse, it could be spiritual abuse, anything. it's never that person just throwing it on you. You have to go back to the roots. Where did it come from that I'm even available to this person? How did they even wind up here in my immediate area?
Right.
And some people would tell somebody, well, get up and leave him. Sometimes you don't even have to do that because you're just going to meet him again. So sometimes you need to stay right where you are and work your healing, work your forgiveness, work it out right there with that person. And once you get the healing and you get the clarity, you'll know, should I stay, should I go?
Right. That's a good point that you said that, and I'm glad that you said that, because that's what I did in my last relationship with you know who. You know, because I did get the revelation that this is just a different version, a different package of these same cycle of relationships, verbally and emotionally abusive relationships that I've been in, where they were broken, which, as we were talking about, you know, all of us,
we're all broken.
Right. We all have some form of brokenness. But now here I am broken, and I'm trying to mend someone else, but I haven't been doing the work on mending myself. And then while I've gotten myself lost in the sauce, now, you know, I'm just continuing to perpetuate cycles of pain.
Right.
You know, where I'm comfortable with pain. Exactly.
It's possible to still work yourself out while the person is there. It doesn't have to be a relationship. It could be a parent that you live with. It could be, you know, a family member. But you're not a slave. You're not a slave. And you do have freedom. And sometimes our free will is so strong, we choose our bondage. We're so free to choose.
It's true. So it is a process, you know. I don't want to minimize, not that you are at all. Right, yes. I think the process probably starts with a decision, you know. A decision even to make small steps at self-improvement. So what are some of the small steps that you've been working on?
This is something that has been in the making of almost like a 7-year awakening. Because it takes time to realize I got some crazy going on. It takes time to realize. I
don't even call it crazy. It's called issues, and we all got issues.
Yes.
We all got that.
It takes time to realize it's not just the other person. It's me. Because once you realize if it's the person, if it's a parent, then you got to forgive. And you can't blame. And then you have to look at your part. Well, what's my part? And then things that need to be incorporated. If you're a reader, read. Counseling, therapy. Talk to your girlfriends, but it can't just stop there, because then you're just swapping and ping-ponging the stories. You have to know, you have to want to know who you are as bad as you want to breathe, period. And I hesitate to give directions because I firmly believe no matter what your background is, you will be led. The Holy Spirit will lead you. Everybody's path and journey is different, but what worked for me may not be your journey.
Right.
Your only responsibility is to wake up and say, something has to change. And who am I? And when will I be able to receive what I get? Now, that's another spin on codependency. They're usually addicted to giving, and they really have a hard time receiving.
That's me. That's totally me. Oh, man.
Me.
It's true.
So it's very complex. There's so many complexes to work out, but just begin with, who am I? And why am I here? And what is my purpose? And what am I here to create?
Man, Whitney, you're really hitting on some really good points, because that's been a part of what I've been doing in my process. It's always my thing, because sometimes, honestly, it takes everything just to, like, get out of bed and just try to keep going. Like, sometimes just that alone is a big task. Well, I could say for me, because I also battle depression. And depression is like this dark cloud that makes you just want to lay in bed and not really do anything else, honestly. And one of the things that has really, really helped me is, Kelly, what is your purpose?
Right.
And I'm so thankful that my acting teacher had me sit down and write a mission for my life, you know, when I was in college. What is the mission for your life? And then whatever that is, you do that with laser beam focus. So whenever I'll get up and I'll be like, oh, I wonder what this guy is doing, my boyfriend, why can't I reach him, or what's going on. Like I'm putting all this mental energy into these relationships.
Right.
Whenever I do it, I say, what's your purpose? Hold up, shorty. Hold up. You got a purpose. Okay, now how can we do something towards the purpose? Even if it's, let me get good sleep so that I can be productive tomorrow. Let me, get some exercise so that I'll boost the serotonin, the dopamine in my body to help fight depression. But what is your purpose? And then just keep focusing on that. Because if you don't have anything to focus on in your life, it's going to be easier to be so caught up in what everybody else has going. Even when you have a purpose for your life, it's easy to get caught up.
Right. And
especially
that's what
when
I
you
was
love
going
the
to say
person.
Codependency is. You are so detached from your purpose. Because if you were in alignment, you wouldn't be trying to live the other person's life.
Right.
And that's essentially what it is. I'm vicariously moving through this person where I feel needed. And I'm walking away from what is innately in me, because we're here to create. We're here to do on a daily basis. So I can't create if I'm living your life.
Right. A lot of this stuff has to do with the fact that because we can't handle our own pain, we don't want to deal with our own pain, it's easier to focus on helping somebody else deal with their stuff because it doesn't make you dig into the deep inner corners of yourself.
Right. You don't have to face what the real issue is, what's going on. Face the light and come out and be. And now in my process and in my transition and in my healing, I have realized I can walk with this person, but when I'm so aligned with where I'm going, I love you, you're my best friend, but I'm still moving. I'm still moving. You coming with me?
Right.
Let's go.
Which is actually better. It's better for us and them.
Right.
Because if I'm healthy and whole and I'm moving forward, my forward movement will possibly help your forward movement. But if we're both just with each other in our own addiction, in our own mess, then we're really just supporting each other's habits.
Right. So I would just say to anybody who's watching, even if it's tonight when you go home and you pray, just simply say, or even in your thoughts, meditation, whatever you do, who am I? What is my purpose? And I am worthy of the love that I give. And as a matter of fact, I love giving love, but I want to give it in the healthiest way. And I want to give it to me too. So and notice I said, I've been on a 7-year process. This is not a week. This is not a month. It's a constant unfolding, unlayering, changing. It's just it's a walk.
Absolutely.
My name is Whitney Page.
And my name is Kelly Brown.
And we are overcoming codependency.
That's okay. That was good.
Codependency.
And you don't have to say your last name unless you want to.
Whitney Page.
Okay.
That's not my last name.
Oh, okay.
It's running. I'm just going to
run. Okay, go ahead.
My name is Whitney Page.
And my name is Kelly.
And we are overcoming codependency.